Welcome into the Four Chronicles Podcast, episode 148, here high atop a rainy, soaked Jacksonville, Florida, for this December 2nd. Now we're in December now. How about that? And close that window on my computer here. I can hear myself talking, but that's okay. We have a lot of things to talk about today. A lot of things to talk about. Jam-packed show as usual, but this one's even more jam-packed. We have Conference Championship Weekend. I have an authority as we do the Josh Pate-style paper pop that we have several conference championship games. We have the SEC championship game. We have the Big Ten championship game, 1 versus 2, by the way, up there in Indianapolis. Somewhat of a game of the century. First time, by the way, I think we've had a 1 versus 2 matchup in a conference title game since, I believe, Florida and Alabama in 2009. That's when, Tim Tebow, Urban Meyer at Florida in the early years of the Saban era. That's the last time this has happened. So this is very, very rare. Rarefied air we've entered in here with Indiana and Ohio State up there in Indianapolis. We'll talk about that game here in just a little bit. We have a lot of coaching hirings that have been made. Alex Galesh to Auburn, Lane Kiffin to LSU. We have John Sternwald to Florida. We have a lot of other coaching firings and more hirings to get into. Kentucky making a move on Mark Stoops, bringing Will Stein. I'll sort of give you guys my eulogy on Mark Stoops. It's not dead or anything. It's just his career there. And yes, we'll talk about the Penn State situation. It's very confusing right now, but I think it'll all make sense here in due time, I think. If you are new here, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Again, our goal, if you're new here, our goal is to get to 20 subscribers by the time we get to the end of the year. That's still our goal, and I think we can still do that. So be sure to do that. Make sure to follow us on our social platforms, X, Twitter, Instagram, when we're active on there. And on the podcast feed too, if you're listening on there. But make sure you subscribe. It's nothing, it doesn't cost you anything. It's all free of charge. We don't put this on a paywall. We don't force you to sign a form or anything. It's all free. Okay, it's all free, completely free of charge. And be sure to do that too. If you have other people as well in your life that love college football or enjoy listening to shows like this to cover college football, get them subscribed too. We love to have more people coming in, but our goal is to get to 20 subscribers by the end of the year. We're getting very close still. We're running out of time, so be sure to do that. If you don't, the show's not going anywhere, but I would have a good authority that may or may not be in a good mood come after the New Year's and the holidays. So be sure to make sure you do that. We'll be okay. Look at my notes here and see what we have on tap here first. Yes, it is the SEC championship game. But, we have Conference Championship Week, Coaching Carousel stuff, the Tuesday poll, Buccaneers, Cardinals to react to. And I'll just say this. Actually, before we get into the actual meat of the show, the month of December is going to be crazy. We have Sunday Day coming up on Wednesday. We'll talk a little bit about it, go over the top teams in the rankings, in the class rankings. Yeah, of course, Conference Championship Week going on, coaching hirings and firings. We have the playoffs coming up. We have the Avengers Doomsday trailer coming out soonish. There's some rumblings about potentially sooner rather than later. We'll see about that, but really any day now the trailer could leak out. So just be aware of that, and of course we'll be here to cover it when it does. I know and we'll talk more about that on Thursday, but there's, I guess if you will, there's a little bit of steam being picked up in terms of could we see the trailer, or at least not see it, but potentially have it shown to people as early as this weekend. I'll just leave it at that. By the way, too, welcome back to Facecam. We haven't done it in a couple of weeks. We're figuring out some stuff in the studio here, a.k.a. my apartment room. But lighting's okay today, albeit on a very cloudy and gloomy day here in Jacksonville, but should be fine. But I will say this, though. On the Thursday show, it's going to be cold yet again. So just keep that in mind. I know most of you in the Southeast are probably like me, stuck in the rain. But anyway, let's get into the show here. Actually, before we do that, get some water real quick, and then we will get into the show. Officially get into the show. Okay. The SEC championship game, Georgia versus Alabama, as we all thought it would be. This will be the 4:30 game on ABC. Chris and Kirk will be calling the game as per usual, or at least, well, not usual, but since they started doing last year, this will be the typical pairing. Georgia, Alabama. This is the rematch of the previous game back in September. So this will be the fifth time I believe these two have met in the SEC championship game. This is the second time. Actually, no, is it the first time they've met twice in a year? With the conference championship game earlier season, I think it is. So how about that? Very rare situation here. I have a lot of questions about this game for Georgia, as it should. Given Georgia's Bama problem, I think it does warrant that this will be more of a Georgia-focused preview, but we'll still talk about both teams. I think the underlining theme here is, can Georgia finally get over the Bama problem? They've done it before, and it just hasn't happened that much. Kirby only has one win over Alabama, and that was in the national championship game when they had a second opportunity to beat them. So similar to this, they had a second chance to go after them, and they did it. But I still have a lot of questions about them. I have questions about Bama, too. They survived Auburn, Georgia, sweet and sour performance versus Georgia Tech. So a lot of things to discuss here in terms of this game. First question I want to talk about Georgia is, can they, as we just mentioned, can they finally end its Bama problem, its Alabama problem? Will they be psychologically well? Because they have not in the past, a few times they played them, whether in the regular season or in postseason. They have not been there. I mean, I don't know what it is, but every single time Kirby Smart sees that script A, it's like some psychological thing happens to where the team sort of plays to a different level than they typically would be. Like if you were to change out the Bama logo and put an Auburn logo on there or a Florida Gator logo, or for that matter, a Missouri logo, you wouldn't have these questions, would you? No, you wouldn't. You would not have these questions, but you do with this matchup. You do have those questions. And I just don't know if they'll be psychologically there. That is something that I think a lot of, not just Georgia fans, but people around college football wonder. Will Georgia be psychologically well? Will they have that mentality? I don't know. But we will have a Saturday to figure it out. But the next one here, I think is, frankly, for both teams. Can they overcome their injuries at several positions? Bama last week, if you didn't notice, Cuevas, their tight end, is out. They're having some issues on defense. I think some injuries. Georgia, I think your line has been dealing with some problems. So injuries on both sides. They're both banged up, equally banged up. Several players at key positions are out. Not to mention Ryan Williams for Bama might be dealing with an injury. It's not been publicly disclosed. I think the thinking is he is dealing with some sort of injury because the last game out for them against Auburn, he didn't record a catch, and I don't think he even really played that much. So take that for what it's worth. We'll put the paper down here. We don't need it yet, but that is going to be a key here. Is can they overcome injuries at key positions? They really missed Cuevas. Bama did because they had guys step up like Horn from Miami, a couple other, but their tailbacks stepped up catching the football. But it's just the passing attack for Bama very shaky. But like I said on the reaction show on I posted it yesterday. I was a bit late, but on Saturday when I filmed it Saturday night, even with the injuries and it being close, I know a lot of folks are still kind of upset about the way the trajectory of Bama is going right now. You shouldn't be surprised. You can look at Kalen DeBoer in 2023. All the games he played for the most part, I went over this on Saturday on the video that we recorded Saturday and posted yesterday. All those games in 2023, the Washington team that went to the national championship, were mostly 85% of them were close. But they didn't have a whole lot of blowouts. So in terms of Kalen DeBoer's profile as a coach, this isn't shocking to me. This is kind of what you're going to get if you're a Bama fan with Kalen DeBoer. It's not a good thing, or is it a bad thing? It's just kind of is what it is. It just kind of is what it is. I don't know what to say. Now for Georgia, I think one of the bigger questions I think I have for them is can they limit the nuclear plays? The Bama can get nuclear plays. And if you're new here, we talk about the nuclear plays. Nuclear in terms of college football, not other things, is the big 20-plus yard plays, a 40-yard pass play, a 30-yard pass play, a big, or even a pass. It doesn't have to be a pass. It can be a run. Just a big explosive play, nuclear play. Some people call them catbuster plays. Can they limit those? Then the first time around, they let Ryan Williams get wide open for a touchdown, I think. And I think he may have dropped it, but still a lot of big explosive plays that they allowed Georgia did this past the last time they met a few months ago. So they need to limit that. I don't know if they can because they've had a Georgia tendency to do that. The Tennessee game is an example of that. Auburn even they allowed big plays there. So can they limit those explosive plays? Can they limit the big nuclear plays? I don't know because that defense is not there's a lot of ums here. They don't have a good pass rush. We'll bring it up here in a little bit, but the pass rush for Georgia this year, it's not been to the same standard as other Georgia teams. Like I don't necessarily. I'm going to use a term here from Bud Elliott. Bud Elliott from Cover 3. I don't necessarily feel Georgia this year in terms of defensively. Now, offensively, well, yes, they have not been able to run the ball consistently. I trust the receiving core, which will be a challenge for Bama, I think, because they've not been that secondary for Bama has not been tested in a lot of sense. Like they have not faced a decent passing attack. Like Auburn kind of had the potential to do it with their receivers. Like they did get exposed of the Simmons kid getting open for a couple big plays, but those were like random nuclear plays that were very random and like sort of broken down. Like one of them was like return or callback for a penalty. So that one for Bama, at least the secondary is a concern because they can get on, or at least Georgia. Actually, I don't know why I just said that. I brought up Bama's secondary, but I guess them too. I guess because they got Georgia a little bit too. But both secondaries, I guess. Yeah, I guess I was trying to say that's all I was trying to say is that both secondaries are going to be tested here. I think because both of these receiving cores, even with the injuries, are still quite good. And maybe talk about Georgia running the football. I don't know if they can, but they have been very consistent. I know a lot of folks will bring up that Georgia is they ran the ball over Mississippi State or did this against this team. Well, Mississippi State doesn't have the same athletes as Alabama. Like Auburn last week, the leading rusher is their quarterback. So I don't necessarily think that this game is going to profile with Georgia being able to run the football effectively and consistently. Like this will be one of the better, or this has actually. Well, let me rephrase that. They're once again facing one of the best defensive teams they've faced all year. So, I mean, they faced them already. So they should know that running the football on Bama with the team or with with the offense that already can't really necessarily run the football consistently to begin with, probably not the best thing. Same with Bama, too. Like, Bama can't run the football either, but they kind of got it going on Saturday against Auburn. So that is something to think about. This game, in a lot of ways, profiles a little bit like Ohio State and Michigan last week in terms of the mental standpoint. Again, brought up the whole psychological thing with Georgia. This is the similarity as last week when Ohio State went to Ann Arbor to face Michigan. That's the profile for this game. That is the comparison I think a lot of folks are going to have. Is this sort of thing that, again, Georgia can't seem to get out of their own way psychologically. It's like some weird psychological barrier that they can't get over. And I don't know if they have the potential to do it. But they could. Right? They have the talent to do it. They have the coaching staff that, in most cases, can win this game. But then again, you're playing against the team with the script A versus, facing against that Gator logo or that Longhorn logo. Like it's not the psychological warfare here is a lot. Well, I shouldn't say warfare, but the psychological impact, at least of this game, is definitely a thing. And unfortunately for Georgia, it's not gone their way. It's not been very kind to them. Now for Bama, a question that I also have here in my notes is, can Bama, under a new head coach, overcome the magnitude of this stage, especially this being the first time that Kalen DeBoer has been to the SEC championship game? And what I mean by that is that, well, yes, Kalen has had success in the past, but this is a different magnitude. This is a little bit different stratosphere. Like this is, when Bama fans think of them going to the SEC championship game, they think of Nick Saban. Like Nick Saban, from what I recall, only had one loss in the SEC championship game. Only one loss, and that was to the University of Florida in his second year. That was the one time he lost it, if I recall correctly. That was the only time he lost it. Besides that, his career at Alabama, never lost. Every time he went there, very rarely felt threatened. Like when they faced those dumb, those crappy Jim McElwain Florida teams or whatnot, one of those Missouri teams. Like when they faced those teams, and I don't know much mean, but let's just call it what it is. But they really felt threatened. Like the only time they really felt threatened was when they faced Georgia, when they actually got a competitive game. So now here's the thing, though, with Kalen DeBoer. One of the things that if you were to pick Georgia, or excuse me, if you were to pick Bama here, not, if you're picking Bama, not including the whole Georgia psychological thing, DeBoer has been in this situation before. Like he has been in this, sort of predicament before. And as I mentioned earlier, 2023, that's the comparison here. He has done this before in 2023 when they won a conference title game facing a team for the second time. Oregon in 2023 beat them in the regular season at home. Played them in, I believe, Las Vegas. Yeah, Las Vegas in the final Pac-12 championship game. and he beat them as well as a dog. So he's been in this situation before, Kalen DeBoer. He has done this before. He has been in this position to, again, play a team he beat in the regular season, have a chance to face him again, still be a dog, but then beats him again. And I know, if I recall correctly, a lot of folks were picking against Washington and picking Oregon to win that game, and they all looked pretty stupid afterwards. So if you want to use that dynamic to make you, sway you either way to at least pick the game, that'll be, if you're picking Bama, that would be sort of the biggest reason why I'll pick them. This game will be one in the trenches. I believe this will be a trenches type game, especially with Georgia, who has not shown the ability to rush the passer. Can they get to Ty Simpson? That would be, I think, of all the big questions in this game, that is the biggest question. Can they get to Ty Simpson? Because Auburn did it. Okay, Auburn did it a little bit. Oklahoma's done it sometimes. Other teams have done it throughout. But now the thing is, though, is a lot of those teams, unless you're Florida State or Oklahoma, you didn't win those games, but you got to the quarterback. Can Georgia do it? I don't know if they can do it. I actually have a spelling error here. Let me fix that. Wrong one. I don't know if they can. Again, they have talent. They have some of the best defensive talent in college ball, and have some of the best coaching staff defensively in college ball, or some of the best coaches in terms of defensive folks in college ball or defensive personnel. I just don't know their pass rush can do it. Again, I don't, and I agree with Bud Elliott. I just don't know if I feel this Georgia team defensively. But we'll see. I mean, again, if Auburn can get to Ty Simpson like they did on Saturday, then there's a path. I mean, a lot of ums here. I'm trying to eliminate those ums, but sometimes you can't do it. It's very hard not to. These are some of the best offenses in the country. Two of the best scoring offenses. This is the number 22 offense in terms of Georgia, and then the number 26 team of total offense with Bama, scoring offenses in the country, according to CFB nerds there, Josh and Daniel doing their information. So, they're not necessarily a partner of the show, but we do use their assets because they are free. Let's look at the model and we'll get to my pick here, and we'll also look at the FanDuel line. So the FanDuel line, not a sponsor of the show. We just use it for research purposes. The FanDuel line, as I did this, wrote down my notes last night. Pretty sure this hasn't changed as much. It's Georgia minus 2.5. Makes sense to me in terms of the power ratings. If you're listing these teams on the neutral field, or listing these teams in terms of neutral field favorability, this one makes sense to me. Georgia being minus 2.5. The CFB Nerds model, Josh and Daniel's model, have this as Georgia minus 4. Have it just a little bit higher. I was very conflicted in this game. I understand the principle of it's hard to beat a team twice. I get that. If you want a good example of that, if you're Georgia, when you faced Auburn twice in 2017, they blew you out at home, turned around, you beat them in the SEC championship game. I get it. I know the whole thing about it's hard to beat teams twice. Don't tell that to Kalen DeBoer. Because, again, in 2023, people were saying the same thing to Oregon, saying, hey, man, it's hard to beat teams twice. If you're Oregon, you should feel very confident about beating Washington. Kalen DeBoer said, all right, fuck that. I'm gonna prove it to you guys that that's not something that we're immune to. So that's something to consider. But then again, I go back to Kirby Smart and this whole mental thing where at some point this whole mental blockage has to end at some point. It has to. This has been so many years of close losses, heartbreak, getting destroyed, getting your pants pulled down, you look like a homeless person. The whole madness of them losing to Bama in so weird psychological ways has to end. Again, look at Michigan, Ohio State. Ohio State finally did it. Can Michigan or can Georgia finally do it? Can Georgia finally? It feels like we're talking about the tearing down the Berlin Wall after the fall of the Soviet Union. It shouldn't be that hard, but for Georgia, it is that hard. Again, I thought, I was struggling to pick this game. Originally, I wanted to go Georgia. I had this mentality in my head where, yes, I understand some of the other circumstances for the mental stuff, but I just thought to myself initially, the streak has to end. The problem has to end at some point. And that's what I initially thought. But then again, I look at Washington in 2023. Similar situation. You beat Oregon in the regular season. Those two, Oregon and Washington, meet each other again in Las Vegas. And just like this, Oregon was favored. It didn't matter that day. So because of that and Kalen DeBoer's experience in a situation like this, I'm going to do what I did back in September. The data shows, at least in terms of, I know it's very small sample size, but look at data as data. these Kirby Smart, Nick Saban-esque defenses have really struggled against this Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb offense. We look at Texas a couple years ago and Oregon and Georgia the past couple years. They have struggled. Why would I leave to believe that Georgia now, after so many weeks and months of getting prepared for this, why would I believe now that they can all of a sudden pull this off and get this thing out of their head psychologically? Again, I'm not trying to act like, the sports counselor here or the sports psychologist. I'm just telling you, I don't know if it's going to happen. And because, again, going back to this whole Washington 2023 thing, again, eerily similar. So because of that, I'm going to do what I did back in September. I'm picking Bama to win outright, and I think they will win the SEC championship game. And I think this whole Georgia psychological thing against Bama is going to continue. And Kalen DeBoer is once again going to prove the people wrong. That this whole mentality of it's hard to beat teams twice, to him, he tells you, fuck that. He does not care. I mean, I'll give Kalen DeBoer this. And look, a lot of folks will criticize him. Look, I have my thoughts on him as a coach in terms of other things, the way he does things, but it's not necessarily all bad things. But the one thing I will say about him, he has that fuck off mentality, like sort of like kind of like Baker of the Bucs, like that mentality of like, yeah, everyone's against us, everyone hates us. Well, fuck that. You don't usually cuss on this show, but it's my show. I can kind of do whatever I want. So yeah, Bama has this fuck off mentality. They don't care. Like, in a close game, we don't care. We're gonna rip your heart out and crush your soul. So I am picking Bama to win the game outright. Again, I just don't believe, or at least I don't understand why people are thinking in terms of picking this game. Like, why would you now believe that Georgia, after so many weeks and months removed from that past game, why would you think now that they're all of a sudden just now ready to beat Bama and ready to finally put an end to this whole, Kalen DeBoer versus this Kirby-esque defense and this whole Bama mental thing? Why would people think it's going to end now? It could end. And look, I really hope it would end. For Georgia's sake and that whole staff there, I would love it to happen. At least I would love for that to happen. But given the history and the data and what I've seen, why would I believe that? Why would I believe that? Especially against Kalen DeBoer, who has that fucked off mentality. Why would I believe that? So, give you Bama to win and to just win the game outright. I have no real thoughts on the money line, but I'm going to pick Bama to win, and I think they're going to win outright. Similar to a couple months ago, and all these other folks were going, oh, yeah, Georgia's going to win the game. Ha, ha, ha. Well, who was looking stupid then? Who was laughing then? Look, I could be wrong here, too. Look, if Georgia wins, cool. Good for them. Good for them for getting over the mental hump. Look, I picked Ohio State to finally end their misery against Michigan. I was right about that. But I think I have a good read on this one, and I am going to pick Bama to win. I think they will run the game outright. Again, this to me, at least this whole situation, or at least this Bama team, I'm not saying it's exactly the same. Again, I just want to be very clear here. This is not. I'm not saying they're exactly the same, but the team profile and the team spirit very similar to that Kalen DeBoer Washington team in 2023. Very similar. Let's check here my notes here. Make sure we have everything we need. I think we do. Sure. Is there anything I'm missing here in the notes here? Okay, I think we're good. Actually, I don't need the paper back again. Lane Kiffin is officially at LSU. The whole saga is over. The Marty Smith hostage crisis is finally over. Good for Marty Smith, by the way. Get out there and see his family if he has one. I'm sure he does, and his friends and whatnot. Good for Marty Smith. Good for him. Good man he is. I've never met him before. I've seen him before in person, though, which is kind of weird trivia. But Lane Kiffin to LSU. Everyone's making a big deal about the whole, drama thing and Lane making it a whole circus. And, the other folks who talk about that, it kind of is what it is. It's kind of the classic you give what you pay for. I want to talk about what this means for LSU. I think this is a good hire for LSU, but in the words of Tom Fornelli, I don't know how it's going to work out. You could win a national championship in a few years. You could get to the college football playoff for the first time in a number of years or this decade. That's all possible. But how are we going to get there? What's that staff going to look like? Now, it seems like they are going to keep Blake Baker, who Josh Pay calls an American hero, which now after hearing the Brian Kelly stories, it seems like that moniker has more meaning to it now. So him being probably retained, I think Frank Wilson's being retained. So a lot of that core pillars of LSU staff and some of the new folks who came in a couple years ago, they're all being retained, it seems like. So that's good. Seems like, or it's basically guaranteed that it will be a full overturn for the whole entire offensive staff. So it'll be all of Lane's people, like Charlie Weiss Jr. I think will be there. So all the folks in Ole Miss who are the offensive brain trust of him, they'll be going over there. So their staff is certainly getting made as we speak, and it's coming together. And I think it's good to keep Blake Baker around. And that's a huge win for LSU to keep him around because he did some really good stuff there in a time when their head man, their former head coach, was sitting on the beach in Florida doing absolutely nothing football related, or at least related to the program. So Lane and his staff, I'm cool with. I think it could be a good staff. What will this look like offensively for them? Because LSU, under Brian Kelly, besides 1 year with Jane Daniels winning the Heisman, very inconsistent. Like a lot of sloppiness, a lot of just. I can guarantee you this: offense for LSU, probably for the first time since 2019, won't be an issue for you. Or at least consistently. I know Jane Daniels in the Heisman thing in 2022, or was it 2022, 2023? It was 2023. Yes, I get that the offense that year was really, really good, but it was very inconsistent at times. I guarantee with Lane, it will not be inconsistent. It'll be very consistent. You will get the scoring points, the fun offense, the veer and shoot, Baylor Brile stuff, in a way, sort of a version of that. He talked about it in his press conference as such, that it sort of is a combination of different offenses. So, yeah, offense I'm not worried about. Defense, I was worried about. Again, I was very interested into would Lane be keeping Blake Baker? Would that mostly the entire defensive staff be retained? It looks like it's going to. I don't know about Kevin Peoples. I think he is staying behind. That's good. Recruiting, though, is the problem. Because as Bud Elliott over on Curve 3 has brought up, and 247 has brought up, while Lane is very good in the transfer portal, he's done amazing work in the portal. Again, getting guys like from like Division III football to be your quarterback in Trinidad or at Ole Miss. Like he has done a very good job of identifying talent and getting folks to come to places like Ole Miss, like from like Texas A&M, for example. Like Walton Roland last year transferred from A&M, went to Ole Miss, and then he goes drafted like in the top 15 in the NFL draft. So the transfer portal Lane, I'm not concerned about. I think he will get his pick of the litter. I think the recruiting though is a little bit different because when he was at Ole Miss, that's like the latest sample size. Like Tennessee and USC, that's like 15 years ago. No one cares about that. His recruiting at Ole Miss still was kind of it's okay. Hey, it's fine for Ole Miss, but at LSU, if your rankings in the 40s or 30s, that's not good enough. In the words of Will Turner and Pirates of the Caribbean when he was talking to Coleman and Orrington, that's not good enough. If you're an LSU fan, that's not good enough. And I agree. Like LSU, when you picture LSU, if you're just to do like a blind, or not just doing like a 50,000 foot perspective here, when you think of LSU in recruiting, you think top 5, maybe even number 2 in the country or number 1, battling for number 1, getting a whole bunch of 5 stars, locking down Louisiana. That's LSU. What Lane was doing at Ole Miss, recruiting in the 30s and the 40s and getting a couple 3-star guys, maybe an occasional 2 and 1-star guy, that's not good enough. At LSU, that's not the standard there. Standard is what Nick Saban said, and what Les Miles kind of tried to continue in what Ed Orgeron kind of did, and then Brian Kelly kind of saw you got what you got with him. But that's not the standard, okay? So if you're Lane and that staff there, you need to be focusing on recruiting because you're seeing with Mike Norvell in Florida State. That's what happens when you have someone who does really well in the portal taking over a program that traditionally does well when you recruit high school, and they're not doing well in high school. Like Lane Kiffin, like LSU cannot be Mike Norvell in Florida State. But you really need to avoid that because that can really get you into trouble. So again, the portal stuff of Lane, I'm not worried about. Recruiting though, and not this year necessarily because it's kind of a botched class anyway, but the years to come, like 2026, 2027, 2028, 2029, those are the years if I'm an LSU fan, you better get it done in recruiting. You better get at the bare minimum top 10, top 8. Because anything below that, if you're in like in the 20s or 30s, again, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. That's not the standard there. This isn't Ole Miss. This isn't Mississippi State. This isn't Kentucky. Again, go look at your friends down the road on I-10 over there in Tallahassee and ask them how it's going with a coach who does decently well in the portal and then craps out in high school. Just throws up all on themselves and doesn't know what they're doing. So that's a thoughts on Lane Kiffin LSU. Again, the offense should be good. Good for them for retaining most of that defensive staff. The recruiting aspect and locking down the state of Louisiana, that's my worry here with them. That's my only thing I'm concerned about. Because you saw with Brian Kelly, you couldn't do that. And, well, just in general, disrespecting Louisiana in general. Now, look, I do believe Lane gets it. Again, he's been around good people. He's been around good head coaches. Nick Saban, even though that relationship ended sourly a couple years ago, I think it's been mended since. Pete Carroll, his dad, who's since passed away, who was with the Buccaneers for a number of years, won the Super Bowl with John Gruden. Like, he's been around good people, so he understands. I get that he does understand Louisiana. I think he understands that how important it is. I'm just wondering that can they actually do it? Can they actually do it? I think they can do it. It's not that they can't. I think they can do it. Let's see. If they can do that, if they can actually respect recruiting and not do what Mike Norvell is doing at Florida State, go for Lane Kiffin and actually understand the assignment. Because in everything else, I think they're okay with. Okay, I think the offense is good, transfer portal good, and keeping Blake Baker around. Thumbs up here. Stamp of approval. But yeah, you just got to look. You have to lock down recruiting. That's very, very important in Louisiana because that's the lifeblood of that program, or any program, frankly. It's a water real quick, and we'll move over. The show's not done yet. We still have this might be a very long show, if I'm being honest with you. I mean, we're not even close to being done yet. We still have a few more conference championship games to go over, and we still have to talk about other coaching hirings too. So let's hit water real quick. We'll mute it here on YouTube, and we'll continue on here in just a moment. Whew, and this one's a huge one. Again, we're back here on audio on YouTube with Spotify. Your audio didn't cut out, just getting something to drink. Whew, this one's hot. I mean, if you're watching on YouTube, you can tell I'm fanning myself with the paper. Big Ten championship game, 1 versus 2. Game of the century, potentially. Ohio State, Indiana. Ohio State, Indiana. Imagine telling yourself this 10 years ago, that Ohio State will be playing in the Big Ten championship game in 2025. No surprise, right? Pretty standard. But then you tell, if you're to do this little if you're to do the whole time travel thing, right, go back in time to 2015. So yeah, you ask your 2015 self, hey, Ohio State's going to the Big Ten championship game in 2025, 10 years from now. Yourself in 2015 would have said, yeah, that makes sense, right? But then you tell them, well, their opponent, actually, before you tell them the opponent, ask your 2015 self, guess who it is? Yourself in 2015 would have been like, oh, yeah, is it Penn State? Is it Michigan State back in the day? Is it Michigan with Jim Harbaugh? Well, first of all, you tell them, well, Jim Harbaugh's in the NFL. So that's one team out. And no, it's not Michigan State because they've been through multiple coaches. And no, it's not Penn State because James Franklin has not been fired. You tell your 2015 self that it's Ohio State versus Indiana. Yourself in 2015 would be like, you're on drugs. You're high. And you're taking like LSD. You're taking fentanyl or whatever. Like you're high. You're not high. You grab your 2015 self, put it in a time machine, go to 2025. You show them the Wikipedia page. You tell them it's not edited. This is a real thing. It's happening this Saturday. That's this game. I believe, if I recall correctly here, as we pop the paper, Josh Pate style, this is the first time you've ever had a 1 versus 2 matchup in the Big Ten championship game. First time ever. I'm pretty sure that's the first time ever. It is also the first time they've had a 1 versus 2 in any topic game, I believe, since 2009 with Bama versus Florida. So it's been a long time. It's been a very long time since this has happened in a conference championship game. But then no one's talking about it. Very strange. Like college games, not going there. Everyone's kind of avoiding it. We're not avoiding it. We're going to talk about it because this is a huge game. I don't care what anyone says about, it was a meaningless game, and personally, both of these teams really shouldn't be here because they would prefer, having extra time off and whatnot. I don't care because you know why? This is huge for Indiana. This will absolutely be the biggest moment in that program's history and at flood department's history. Yes, even exceeding their basketball success, this will be the biggest thing because I guarantee you this: if they do this, this will be the biggest thing that's ever happened to Indiana. Again, that's including basketball. Again, football is the biggest revenue-driving sport in this country. And if Indiana were to do this and win the Big Ten title again in football and being potentially the number 1 overall seed in this college football playoff, that would be like the definition of insanity. Again, imagine telling yourself that 10 years ago. Like, wow. So, yes, this is a big deal for Indiana and Ohio State. Of course it is. I mean, some of this too for Ohio State. Another paper pop here in honor of Josh Pate. This is Ohio State's first trip to the Big Ten championship game this decade in a normal season. The last time they were here in a normal year was 2019. Yes, I know they made it in 2020, but 2020 was 2020. This is the first time in a normal 12-team or a normal 12-game season that Ohio State's been here this decade. So, yes, this matters to them. And which is crazy, too, because Ohio State, the past couple of years, and even winning the national championship last year, like they didn't get the chance to go to Indianapolis all those years of C.J. Stroud and Justin Fields. Like they had all that talent there, and then they never made it to Indianapolis, which is and just completely insane to me. Yes, again, I get it. They made it in 2020, but we're talking about a normal, 12-game season. Like this hasn't happened in a very long time. So strangely pretty rare. Could you imagine telling yourself that 10 years ago? So, yes, this does matter for both teams. It does matter. This has to be Fernando Mendoza's game. This has to be his game for Indiana to win this game. Because you can talk about all the things about Ohio State, the receivers, and yes, I know they've been banged up and whatnot. I think they should be ready to go this week. But this game to me is all about Fernando Mendoza. He is one of the leaders in the Heisman. This has to be his Heisman game. Yes, I know the moment against Penn State was huge, and yes, everyone will talk about it in Indiana football history for the rest of time. I get that. But this has to be Fernando Mendoza's game. It has to be. It has to be his game. Because I don't think Indiana has a whole lot of help outside of him. Because Ohio State defensively with Matt Patricia, and look, I doubted Matt Patricia. I doubted him as defensive coordinator, as I just my chair here. I doubted him as a DC, transitioning from the NFL to college football. I did not, at least I was questioning it working out. I was wrong on that, okay? I mentioned that last week when we were picking the Michigan game. I was wrong on that. This will be a challenge, and this will be a very unique challenge for them. Can he actually be can he will his team to win? Because we've seen players do this, right? We've seen Cam Newton do it, Joe Burrow do it, Johnny Manziel, Diego Pavia, more recent example. We've seen these players get to this mode where it doesn't matter how mediocre the team is around them or how good the team is. They just will their team. They just will themselves to a win. And for Fernando Mendoza, for them to do this, for them to actually overcome as big as the deficit, as big as the spread is in this game, given it's a 1 versus 2 matchup, he has to be the difference. He has to be the reason why they win this game. Whether it's him running the football, throwing the football, just he has to be the best version of himself. That's all he needs to be, and he needs to be the reason why they win this game because they're going to need it. Because again, this Ohio State defense, especially in the D line and the linebackers, is very, very good. The secondary is fairly good. But the one thing here I will say about Indiana is that their receivers need to be. That's the other kind of missing part here, or the other not missing, but the other part of this equation here with them to win this game is that those wide receivers in Indiana, they need to step up too. But that's going to be the reason why they win this game with Mendoza.